Hello, so this is for my fine arts masterwork final. And the first question is, why is it important that people see famous works of art, and why is it important that you see famous works of art? I think it's important for people to see famous works of art because those works have proved themselves to truly be masterpieces of whatever art period or medium or subject that they are a part of. And by being able to see these famous works of art, it allows them to be a little less fictionalized, because I find that these works of art are so hyped up to be these beautiful pieces of art, but most people can only see them digitally, like only on screens, and also it makes it seem like they almost aren't real, because you can't see the actual physical object. So by being able to see these works of art in person, you can truly see that they are real physical pieces. And it's important for me because, like I said, being able to actually see these works of art in person really puts things into perspective. Works like The Birth of Venus or David have been so talked about online. I've almost associated them with digital counterparts. That is the only way that I've ever seen them before. But by seeing these works in person and seeing, the actual brushstrokes, or like imagining Michelangelo, carving out David's veins, like it just makes it seem so much more real, and actually really gave me a deeper appreciation for these arts, because I did get to see them in person with my own eyes, with no medium in between us. So the next question is, consider all the people, costs, and resources that are being utilized to preserve the art that you saw. Comment on what those actions say about the societies preserving their art, and how does this apply to the USA. I think that all of the resources and effort that are being poured into these artwork shows how proud these societies are of their culture, and how they want to keep these relics of history for generations to come to appreciate. And these artworks are a part of the cultural heritage of these societies, and reflect how the people and government and even religious movement during the different periods impacted the countries. And looking at the difference in the art pieces from period to period shows the growth that the people and societies as a whole have come to. And I feel like in the US, art really isn't a part of our everyday lives like it is in Europe. And even though people in the US are very proud of our country and our history, I find that they care more about what the people of the time said or wrote down, rather than the art that is depicting those paintings. I think that the USA does try to preserve our art, but it isn't quite as an integral part of our society as how it is in, Italy or Austria. But I also think about it, like World War II, that, the Nazis were stealing so many pieces of these artworks. And I think that really put it into perspective, that by these artworks being stolen, it's literally taking away part of their cultural heritage. And I feel like after World War II, a lot of countries have, it really became a point that they need to preserve art, because it is a huge part of their cultural heritage. And that leads me into what do you think about people risking their lives during World War II for some of the art you witnessed? As I said previously, art is a part of a country's cultural heritage, and by keeping that heritage alive, the people and stories within those artworks can be remembered for centuries. Actually, I read an article on Jewish Journal's website, who was written by Amalia Abekassis, sorry. And the article was about the concept of is saving art worth lives. And Amalia focuses on interviewing two members of the Monuments Men, who were an organization during World War II whose goal was to save as much culture in Europe as they could. and they went and saved thousands of paintings. Like the Mona Lisa was saved from the Nazis by the Monument Men. And but there was a quote that really stuck out to me as Amalia came to her conclusion, and she said that saving art is worth a human life because it means saving our ability to document our history, maintain our identity, and preserve culture throughout time. Art really is a time capsule into the past, and it can show us a person's experiences, emotions, and hopes. And by being able to see art that people risk their lives for was such an incredibly moving experience. And it really just further solidified in me that art is an extension of the people and the culture that it was created by or for. And even though people did risk their lives and people did die, and I think that there should have never been a situation in which people had to do that, I do understand why people would want to risk their lives, because pieces of their culture and their identity was being taken away from them. And the next question is, explain the moments you experienced wonder. And actually, one of the most critical moments of wonder I experienced during the trip was after we climbed to the top of the Duomo, and then we got to re-enter and wander around the church. I stood on the pews, and I just gazed up at the Last Judgment and the huge domed ceiling, and it's just everything. I just felt so small, I guess. And I just found myself starting to cry. I was like literally sobbing in the Duomo. And even though we had already seen extraordinary monuments like St. Peter's Basilica, which also was a huge moment of wonder for me, but I'll get to that in a little bit, and the Colosseum, something about the Duomo just filled me with this very like intense feeling of like, it was almost like an out-of-body experience, because I kind of couldn't believe that I was there experiencing and witnessing this incredible piece of Italian architecture, anything, just history. I felt like I was literally experiencing Italian history just being in this building. And I'm not sure if it was like a spiritual moment or if all of the beautiful artworks and buildings I had seen had just like really caught up to me in that moment. But I think that was my biggest takeaway, was being in the Duomo, just crying about what I was seeing. St. Peter's Basilica was also a very big moment of wonder for me. It wasn't emotional like the Duomo was for me, but just walking into St. Peter's and seeing the sheer size of it, like I felt so small. It almost felt like, I am this tiny human on earth and I am in God's kingdom. I feel like that was kind of a part that they wanted to make, like a point they wanted to make, was how small it made you feel. And it was so intricate. It's like my eyes couldn't even fully comprehend what I was seeing. It was just, there was just art everywhere, the floor, the ceiling, the walls, just everywhere. And there were some of the most beautiful pieces of art that I had seen there. And while I didn't get emotional, I was just so stunned. And I think I stood in St. Peter's for like 30 minutes just staring, and I was just trying to comprehend what I was seeing. But those were my two really intense feelings of wonder. And on to the last question is, how do you think this trip and your experience will affect your future self, and why? I think that this trip has truly changed my viewpoint on different societies and cultures, and has really deepened my appreciation of the arts. I've always been interested in art, and I've always thought paintings obviously were very beautiful and held very deep meaning. But by actually seeing these famous works of art, it just has truly deepened my appreciation. I feel like it has really expanded my mind of like how integral art is in the preservation of our culture, our cultural history. And also, this might be a little strange, but I think that this trip has given me more of an understanding of the timeline of human civilization. I find that while we're in history class, yes, we hear these dates and these time periods, but I don't think that it really gets into our mind that how long ago this was, and that these were actual people, because I find that it was so long ago that we can't really relate, but by seeing these works of art, I just felt very connected to history, and I really I feel like I understood the timeline of history more. Um, so yeah, but I got to see that the way religion and morals developed through, the Greek, Roman to the Middle Ages, even like the Renaissance and Baroque. It's just very fascinating to see, especially like how it shifted from like Greek mythology and how often that was depicted to like this stark contrast of just like Christian art, and how it's kind of crazy that it was controversial to try to go back to depicting mythology, whether that be Greek or Roman. I just thought that was very interesting. And finally, I think I have developed deeper interests in art pieces or topics that I just would have never known before this trip. I even discovered my favorite painting of all time during this trip, which is Judith beheading Holofernes by Artemisius. And one really big takeaway that I've been really contemplating on is it's made me appreciate women artists so much more, because throughout every museum that we saw, I can really only name 3 women that I saw paintings of, and that would be Artemisius, and then, sorry, I meant 2 women, Artemisius and Elizabeth Vigée-Lebrun. And by kind of realizing how rare it was for women to be like appreciated for their art, or even like acknowledged, it just really made me realize how much we've grown as a society. I mean, I know women still are not at the same level as men when it comes to being acknowledged for our artistic endeavors, but I don't think that I would have ever realized that if I hadn't gone on this trip and didn't know how kind of rare it was to see a woman's art being displayed in a museum. So yeah, I think this trip has just really changed me. Like, I'm from a small town where we don't have much art being displayed. A lot of the people are really the same. So I don't think that I would have been able to understand different people's viewpoints and just how different people can be from, different countries, because I only have ever seen, Italians on movies or like listening to Dean Martin songs. So by going on this trip, it has really expanded my perception of people, and actually I think has made me a more understanding person and more compassionate and empathetic towards people that I may not have a lot in common with. But yeah, I think this experience will forever be a part of me, and will be something I can tell my children about, in 20 years. So yeah.